Hello Year 8 and a very warm welcome to you all. My name's Miss Peplow and I'm Head of English at Vandyke Upper School, and normally at this time of year all of the Vandyke team would be really excited about meeting all of you when you come up to join us on your induction days. Now sadly we can't do that this year, and as part of your induction you would normally have at least one English lesson and meet at least one English teacher. We thought we would give you the opportunity to meet all of our English team, all 15 of us, over the course of the next few weeks. And what better way to do that than to read a novel with you. So the English team are going to read this novel to you and with you over the next 4 weeks. We're going to release a section every week on a Monday, and each section will be accompanied by a task that you can join us in, a discussion task and a creative task that you can join in with if you feel like it. Now you're going to get to meet all of the team, get to find out a little bit about them. My name, as I said before, is Miss Peplow and I'm Head of English. I've taught English for 10 years, all of those at Vandyke, and I absolutely love teaching English for 3 reasons. First, it's a subject that you get to be creative in, which is so important. So you get to write, you get to express yourself, and you get to really push yourself, because being creative is really challenging. The second thing that English allows us to do is to really discuss and debate relevant issues. You get to be argumentative, you get to find evidence, you get to present your case, and you get to really drill down into the detail of quite sophisticated ideas. And I think that's really exciting. And the third and most important reason that I love teaching English is that as English teachers we have the privilege of taking you through lots of different texts, and therefore taking you on lots of different adventures, be it through the world of drama and plays, through the world of prose and novels, through newspaper articles, through poetry, and a whole wide range of stories and voices. And you get to meet lots of characters, complex ideas, amazing worlds, different genres during your time with us, and we can't wait to share that with you, because it really is an exciting journey. So why not start that here? Stay tuned to us for the next few weeks. We'll be releasing things every Monday to look out for, and we're going to start here today. I'm going to read the first part to you. This is a novel called The Wall. It's kind of a dystopian novel, so it's set in a semi-real, semi-not real future, and it opens in the middle of a football match. We sprint for the ball, shoulder to shoulder, our backpacks thumping from side to side. I get in front, but David grabs my school bag and pulls me back like a rider stopping a horse. "Oi!" I shout. "That's a foul!" "There's no such thing." "Yes, there is. Not when there's no ref." David gets to the ball first and shields it with his body. "Watch this," he says, and jumps on the spot with a jerk of his heels, trying to flick the ball over his head. It dribbles out sideways and rolls into the gutter. David thinks he's a good footballer, even though he's so uncoordinated he only knows where his feet are when he's looking at them. I wedge the ball between my ankles and leap with a sharp knee bend, then swivel. The sphere of leather sits up in the air perfectly, as if waiting for my foot, and I execute what can only be described as an incredible volley, right on the sweet spot. The ball flies away faster and further than I could have ever hoped. Life, as you probably know, is full of ups and downs. There's always a price to pay for perfection. At exactly the moment my trainer whacks into the football, the empty road where we're playing stops being empty. The security car comes around the corner, but my ball is already in the air, and there's nothing I can do to get it back. The driver can't be looking very carefully, because he only slams on the brakes after the ball thumps into his windscreen. David runs for it. I sprint for the ball, getting it just as the security guard climbs out of his car. "Was that you?" he shouts. "No," I say as I'm picking up my ball. "Do you think I'm stupid?" I'm very, very close to saying yes. If I did, I think it might be the funniest thing I've ever said, especially since he probably is a bit stupid. Imagine just driving around and around all day, patrolling streets where nothing ever happens. Even if you were clever when you started, your brain will eventually turn to mush. He's got a gun, but you can't shoot someone just for calling you stupid. I keep my mouth shut and run off with the ball to where David's waiting for me. Half hiding behind a parked car, I tell him what I almost said, and he finds it so funny he punches me on the arm, which is actually quite annoying, so I punch him back, and then he shoves me, so I grab him round the waist and we begin to wrestle. When the security car drives past us, David's sitting on my head, and I see the driver tutting at us as if he thinks we're idiots. But I know that it's him that's the idiot. We go back to football tricks after that until David tries to copy my volley and the ball sails up across the street, above the bus stop and over the hoardings around a building site. This isn't one of the normal building sites around the edge of town either. This is the strange one opposite the medical centre, where nothing ever gets built, and you never see a single person go in or out. I don't believe it, he says, which is what I knew he was going to say. That's a new ball. It bobbled, he says. I knew he was going to say that too. He's trying not to look at me, and I can see him thinking about walking away, so I step in front of him and block his path. You'll have to go over and get it, I say. We all look up at the hoarding. It's more like a wall, solid wood, with nowhere to see in, and more than twice my height. It was originally painted blue, but over the years it's faded to a dishwasher grey, with the paint bubbling up in cracked oval blisters. This building site is pretty much the only place in Amareus that's not spanking new. The rest of the town feels like it's just been unwrapped from cellophane. One section of the fence is a hinged opening, wide enough for a truck, but it's locked shut with a thick chain which is rusted dark as chocolate. Thinking about my ball lost over the hoarding, it occurs to me for the first time how strange it is that everybody calls this place a building site when no one ever builds anything there. You have to climb in and get it, I repeat. We can't go in there, he snaps. I didn't say we, I said you. There's no way in. You'll have to climb over. It's a new ball. It was a present. There is no way I am going in there. So you'll get me a new ball? I don't know. I have to. You have to get me a ball or go in there and get that one back. David looks at me with heavy, reluctant eyes. I can see on his face that he's given up on the ball, and now he just wants to get away from my nagging. I'm late, he says. My uncle's visiting. You have to help me get the ball back. I'm late. It's just a ball. It's the only one I've got. No, it isn't. The only leather one. Oh, don't be such a baby. I'm not being a baby. Baby. You're being a baby. Baby. Saying baby, baby, baby over and over makes you a baby, not me, I say. I'm embarrassed to be even having this conversation, but with David there's sometimes no way out. He drags people down to his level. Then why can't you stop whining about the ball? Because I want it back. Because I want it back, he says in a baby voice. I'm not the kind of guy who hits people, but if I were, this is when I would do it, smack on the nose. His backpack is dangling off one shoulder. I grab his bag and toss it over the fence. He'll have to climb in. I lunge for it, but he's too quick. Not that David is ever quick, but I'm just too slow. He's read my thoughts, and in a second he's running away, laughing a fake laugh. David is my best friend in Amareus, even though he's extremely annoying. Amareus is a strange place. If I were living somewhere normal, I don't think David would be my friend at all. You owe me a ball, I shout after him. You owe me a ball, he says, slowing to a walk, knowing he's out of reach. I watch him go. Even the way he walks is irritating, lolloping from leg to leg as if his shoes are made of lead. He thinks he's going to be a fighter pilot. I think he's too clumsy to control any machine more complicated than a bicycle pump. The most frustrating thing of all is that I know in a day or two I'll have to forget about the ball and make friends again. I used to have lots of people to choose from, but out here there's only David. The other boys in Amareus don't like me and I don't like them. They think I'm a weirdo and I think they're weirdos. In this town, weird is normal. Normal is weird. I look up at the fence. It's unrecognisable. And it's unclimbable. I walk alongside it, blackening my fingertips against the rough wood, bursting a couple of paint blisters in my thumb, until I get to a corner and turn into an alley. I pause to examine the neat ovals of filth at the end of each finger, then place them back on the wooden surface and head down the narrow corridor of cool, shady air. Soon I come up against a metal dumpster. It's higher than my hand, stretched above my head, but if I can climb onto its lid, it might work as a step that could get me over. If I want my ball back, that is the way. I take off my school bag and hide it in the gap between the dumpster and the fence, then take a few steps back. A short run up and a good leap is enough to get a decent grip on the hinge. With a swing and a kick, I hook a leg onto the lid, and after an awkward wriggle, which rubs more of me against the bin than I'd really like, I'm up. A tricky manoeuvre, perfectly executed. Climbing isn't a proper sport, but if it were, it would be the sport that I am best at. I can't explain why, but whenever I look at a high thing, I want to go up it. There's a man who climbs skyscrapers. He just turns up and does it. And by the time he's off the ground, no one can stop him. When he gets to the top, he's always arrested, but he doesn't care. I bet even the policemen doing the arrest secretly wish that they were his friends. Sometimes, when I'm bored, I look at things and figure out where the best handholds and footholds might be. The best climbers can lift their whole body weight with one finger. I look around from the top of the dumpster. There isn't anything to see, only the alley. But just viewing the world from double my normal height feels good. Sour, fishy wafts are coming from under my feet. The lid sags beneath my weight, bending inwards with each step. If it breaks, I can picture how I'd look. I've seen it in cartoons 100 times. The angry face smeared in red and brown goo, a fried egg on one shoulder, a fish skeleton on the other, spaghetti on top of the head. There's always spaghetti. If you add in the stink and imagine it actually happening, it isn't funny anymore. From the lid of the bin, I can't see over the fence. But I can now see that the site goes right up to the wall. If this place does have a secret purpose, this position has to be the key. I pulled myself up onto the splintery top of the fence and with one leg dangling on either side, looked down the site for the first time. There is a house, just a house and a garden, but I've never seen anything like it in my life. The whole place has been flattened, squashed, pushed over. One wall is still intact, at a 45-degree angle, and the rest is just shattered and crumbled underneath it, into not much more than a heap of rubble. Sticking out from the mound of stones and mortar, I can see half a faded pink dressing table, blocks of splayed and crinkled paper, still bound together, but no longer really books. A telephone with no receiver, trailing a wire that snakes away as if it is expecting a call, a toy pram, a yellow dress hanging halfway out of the collapsed window frame, a DVD player bent in half, a toilet seat with an embroidered cover. Two voices spark up in my head. One of them is excited, telling me that this is the best adventure playground, the best climbing frame, the best secret hideout I've ever seen. It wants me to jump straight down and explore the ruin. The other one holds me back. This voice is quieter. It doesn't seem to have any words, but it's more powerful and keeps me motionless at the top of the fence. It's a feeling I can't quite understand. Something to do with the stuff spilling out of the demolished house. Something to do with the obvious suddenness with which this place was transformed from a home into a heap of junk. An eerie chill seems to be rising up from the rubble. It's as if an aftertaste of violence is hanging in the air like a bad smell. All of the houses in Amarillas are the same. You see new ones going up all the time. First the concrete, the sprouting metal bars like a dodgy haircut, then the red roof and the windows, and finally the cladding of stone slapped on like a paint job. This one's different. There's no concrete, just proper lumps of solid stone. I want to jump in and romp around and climb to the top, and at the same time I have an urge to run away and forget what I've seen. I sense that just looking over this fence, just for knowing what the so-called building site contains, I'm in trouble. Holding tight to the top of the fence, I look more closely over the site. Though the gardener's mostly gone wild or disappeared under rubble, from up high I can make out a pattern of paths and beds. A huge rose bush has covered a toppled wall in crimson blooms. In the corner are 6 old-looking fruit trees planted in a perfect circle, forming what would have once been a shady grove. The trees are dead, with a scattering of dried up leaves still clinging to the branches, but they surround a metal swing seat which looks as though it might work, as if it might be the only thing untouched by the carnage all around. Beyond the fruit trees, the ground is bare, flat, grooved, with near rows of bulldozer tracks, right up to the wall. My mouth is suddenly dry and sticky. I feel as if I've accidentally glimpsed one of my friend's mothers naked. It seems almost shameful to be sitting here, staring at the smashed up home that is the absolute opposite of everything my town is supposed to be, but I can't look away. I know it's wrong to climb over these ruins, in the same way it would be wrong to play football in a graveyard, but I just can't turn and leave. I need to know more. I need to touch and feel this place, walk around in it, look for clues as to what happened, and I still want my ball. I glance down between my knees. The inside of the hoarding is slatted, much easier to climb than the smooth exterior. I can go in and out as quickly as I want. No one needs to know what I've done, except maybe David. He probably won't believe me, but I decide my mission can be to find a souvenir that will prove I really jumped in and explored. It won't be difficult to pick out something good. Even from up here I can see the possessions spilling out of the house that never belonged to people like us. This was the home of people from the other side. The mystery isn't what happened to them, it's how they found themselves on the wrong side of the wall in the first place, and why the site hasn't been cleared and built on. I climbed down the slats and turned to face the demolished house. Inside the site, behind the hoardings, there's an eerie silence. I could scamper up the toppled wall in a few seconds if I wanted to, but the graveyard feeling is even stronger here, shielded from the outside world. I scuffle along the fence, heading towards the back of the building, pulled by a strange urge to sit on the swing seat, see if it still works, hear what noise it makes. A pair of old-fashioned patio doors comes into view, a white painted wooden frame, and lots of small square panes of glass, one in each corner tinted blue. The nearer door is crushed and shattered, the other is untouched, still upright, half filling a doorway from nothing to nothing. I find a garden path made of red tiles which leads me in a smooth arc to the swing seat. It's furry with rust, like a sunken ship. I give it a gentle push, expecting it to squeak, but instead I hear a bang from the far side of the garden which makes me jump backwards. A flash of movement around the side of the house catches my eye, and I see a small cloud of dust rising from the earth. As the dust clears, a square sheet of metal becomes visible. I crouch motionless behind the swing seat, ready to run and hide if anyone appears. Nothing moves. Minutes pass and everything remains still and silent. If anyone was here when I arrived, they've now gone. I see my ball nestled in a dusty channel between two clumps of stone, sitting on a mouldering scrap of red cloth that looks like the remains of a cushion cover. I wait a little longer until I'm sure that I'm alone. Then I fetch my ball and slowly approach the metal sheet. It has a greasy ridged surface which I kneel and touch. My hand jumps back at me. The metal is hot, glinting in the bright sunlight. There are footprints in the dust around me, leading towards and away from where I'm squatting. Along the path of these footprints, I see something odd, something not dusty or old or broken. It's small, but new and still working. A dim gleam, barely visible in the daylight, is coming from one end. It's a torch, a working torch, still on. I pick it up, switch it off and switch it on. It can't have been there long, the batteries are still fresh. I turn and look again at the metal sheet. The bang, the footprints, the torch. These three things connect. There's something under that metal. I scour the wasteland around me, checking I'm still alone. I wonder for a moment if I should get help, tell an adult maybe, but what would I say? Why on earth would they believe me or be interested? I found a torch that works. Something moved and went bang. In fact, what were the chances of me even getting to the interesting part of the story before being told off and punished for climbing into the building site? Besides, even if they did believe me and I had uncovered something important, would I be allowed to see it? Would I ever be told the truth about what was discovered? Probably not. If I want to find out what's under there, I have to do it myself, and I have to do it straight away. I bend my knees and heave at the metal, revealing a glimpse of a dark hole. I push again, the hot, sharp edge digging into my skin, but with a firm shove it slides aside. I drop the sheet and immediately realise this hole is no ordinary hole. There's a rope tied to a metal pin that has been hammered into the soil just under the surface. The rope is knotted at regular intervals, each gap the length of my forearm. I can make out 4 knots and then nothing, just a black void. The hole is the size of a manhole, but an irregularity to the shape gives the feeling that it has been dug without machines. This is the entrance to something. I kneel at the edge and shine the torch downwards, with my arms stretched out as far as it will go. In the weak, thin beam, I trace the rope to where it ends in a tangled white blob, sitting on a dark surface that looks like soil. But it's hard to be sure. I can't look at a high thing without wanting to go up it, and now I'm staring down this hole, a hole like nothing I have ever seen before. And the same voice is piping up, telling me that I have to go down, I have to have a look, I have to know what it's for and where it goes. I have a hunch as to what this might be, and I know how dangerous it is to get involved with anything like it. But on the other hand, stumbling across this mystery in the middle of my boring town with nothing to do and nowhere to go is like finding buried treasure. I can't just leave it there and walk away. Maybe I ought to work out the risks, remind myself of everything I've been warned about, take stock of what I have to lose. I know that's what David would do if he was here with me, but I'm not that kind of he's not the kind of person I am. And it's not who I want to be either. Mysteries are for solving, walls are for climbing, secret hideouts are for exploring. That's just how things are. I pocket the torch and slide myself into the hole. The first knot is just beyond the reach of my feet, so I squeeze the rope with my knees and edge myself downwards, hand over hand, until I have a knot to stand on. After that, it is easy. I begin to shunt myself lower, knot by knot, to the bottom. I'm just beginning to enjoy the climb when I hit the soil and find myself wishing that the hole was deeper. The earth at the bottom is softer and darker than on the surface, cool against the palm of my hand. There's a musty smell like a bag of football kit that you've forgotten about for a few days. I switch on the torch and immediately see that my suspicion was correct. The hole is more than a hole, it's a tunnel. Held up with props of rough wood and thin planks that look like they've just come out of packing crates. Mostly though, it's just a thin but seemingly endless tube of soil disappearing ahead into the darkness, in the direction of the wall. Now I have a choice. I can go back up, collect my football, head home, or I can go through. I know what I ought to do. I know what every other boy in Amarillas would do. But as I see it, those are the two best reasons there could possibly be for doing the opposite. I've lived in Amarillas since I was 9, and in those 4 years I've never once been to the other side. The wall is taller than the tallest house in the town. If I wanted to see over it, I'd have to stand on the shoulders of a man who was standing on another man who was standing on another man who was standing on another man. Depending on how tall they were, you might need one more. This opportunity has not yet arisen. The wall was put up to stop the people who live on the other side setting off bombs, and everyone says it has to be done, and everyone says it has done an excellent job. Most of the people who work on the building sites in Amarillas are from the other side, and if you drive to the city, you see lots of people who look like they come from those towns, but other than that, even though they're living right next door, it feels like they aren't really there. Actually, that's not right. You know they're there because the wall and the checkpoints and the soldiers who are all over the place are a constant reminder, but it's as if they are almost invisible. I thought I'd never see into a town beyond the wall until my military service, but now, looking down this column of musty air, I realise that within 5 minutes I could be poking my head up and seeing what's there. The alternative is to wait 5 more years until my conscription to the army. People say hysterical things about what's going on the other side, but adults can't help exaggerating. They're always trying to make you believe that one cigarette will kill you, that crossing the road is as lethal as juggling with knives, that cycling without a helmet is bordering on suicide, and none of it ever turns out to be true. How dangerous could it really be just to pop through and take a quick look? And how frustrated will I feel tomorrow if I just climb back out now and go home? It sounds crazy, but I'm not even scared when I decide to go for it. Frankly, it's the only logical course of action. If you have the chance to uncover a secret and you walk away without looking, there's something wrong with you. The torch lights a few meters of tunnel ahead of me, but no more. I look upwards one last time and see, as if through a telescope, a disc of blue sky with one tiny puff of cloud drifting across it. I crouch on my hands and knees, waving the torch in front of me, trying to get used to the way it produces only a narrow beam of visibly enclosed on all sides by dense velvety blackness. At first, it seems almost like a magic trick, the way objects disappear the instant you move the torch away from them. And then I think how odd it is when you live in a town that you can just get through your whole life without ever seeing real darkness. Amarillas is constantly illuminated with orange streetlights that stay on all night and floodlights at the checkpoint. One last worry pops into my head. I take the phone out of my pocket and squeeze it to light up the screen. Down in my hole there's only one bar of signal. I put the torch down and write a quick text to my mum. Playing football with David, back later. Clutching the torch in my right fist with my other hand flat on the damp earth, I begin to edge forwards. The sound in the tunnel is both oddly loud and unsettlingly quiet. I can't hear any outside noises at all, but every movement I make seems to bounce back off the walls as if amplified. The scrape of my hand and the torch against the soil, the drag of my shoes behind me, the panting of my own breath, All these seem to boom around me like a static echo, which only quietens when I stop moving. Even then, I feel as if I can hear myself swallow and blink. Fear seems to seep out of the soil and into my body like coffee soaking through a sugar lump. As tension closes around my heart and squeezes my lungs, I try to imagine that the real me is somewhere else, up above in the daylight, safe and calm. I pretend that there are two versions of me, one in the tunnel and another one encouraging me on from above. The more I think of this, the easier it becomes to picture, like a cross-section through the earth, me on my knees going through a horizontal tunnel, and then above that a layer of soil, and then above that another me, matching my movements, walking through the gardens of the demolished house, getting closer and closer to the wall, and at any moment simply ghosting through to the unknown place on the other side. It's a strange idea, not just passing through the wall, but also the above and belowness of it. Usually, the world just feels like a flat skin that you walk around on, and then sometimes you remember that every place is more than just one patch of land, because there's also air above it and the ground below it. Each spot is actually a column going right down to the magma at the centre of the earth and up into the sky and beyond forever. People forget that when you go upstairs, you're actually standing right on top of the people who are downstairs. Think about it hard enough and it's properly freaky. If floors and ceilings had to be made of glass, people would go crazy. They wouldn't be able to take it and everyone would end up living in bungalows. It's useful to have things like this to think about when you're doing something scary, because I have no idea how long I've been crawling or how far I've got. At the moment when my torch picks up a patch of something greyish white, I stop and extend the torch in front of me, peering into the gloom, squinting to try and form the shifting blob of colour into a recognisable shape. Another metre of crawling gives me the answer. It's a coil of rope. I've got to the other end of the tunnel. I'm on the other side. You've done it, I think to myself in a booming military voice. A daring and risky mission executed with determination, courage and skill. If I believed in medals, I'd award myself one right there and then. In fact, I hate medals. They gave one to my dad. Mum has hidden it somewhere, and I don't even care where. All I need is a quick look outside. After that, I can head home. I grip the rope and give it a tug, checking it's firmly attached, then switch the torch off and put it back in my pocket. In pitch darkness, one knot at a time, I begin to climb. Stay tuned and join us for the next episode soon. Next one with Mr. Tuck.